Okay. The session's being recorded. Now I'm going to start the broadcast. Do you want to get rid of this in the background, the Firefox?
Why don't we wait until 1:30 to start the broadcast?
Okay, I like the bad stuff, but that's fine.
You want to allow this patient? Well.
So when it's time, but you do not need that. So yeah, I would just get out of it. So the only thing is that. Cool. So when it starts, you've done it before, right? You don't need me.
In terms of starting the webinar? No.
Well, and running it.
I mean, I can do like all of this. But
and you know that there's a thing that you can show this application only, so you can see the rest of your screen.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to minimize it, when you do it, when you can, instead of showing screen, now don't do it now because it will launch it as soon as you do it.
So what's wrong with showing your screen?
She doesn't want to start yet. Oh, but you haven't started the broadcast. Go ahead.
It would just show the first page.
Yeah. So click down. It won't let you. I wonder if you have to start the broadcast to do that. Okay, I'm going to start this up just in case. You want to email me your presentation just in case?
The latest one on Teamer.
Okay. Oh, no, are you sure?
Yes, I posted it.
Oh, okay. So
Actually, we still have 6 minutes. Plenty of time.
it's just not behaving the way I expect it to, and I imagine it might have something to do with changing presenters. Okay. But I will get ready over here just in case.
That
right?
could be. That could be.
It could be. But we'll find out in a minute. Never a dull moment at DI.
Yeah, like this says right now that there's no presenter.
It could be because you might not be able to switch presenters.
Right. Right.
Oh, now I'm the presenter.
You are now the presenter?
Yeah, I made myself the presenter.
Oh, okay. See if you can change that to your, see how the pick, oh.
No, it just said click X and then when you're ready to show screen.
Yeah, but there was a pick list. I was wondering, because you should be able to choose which application you show. There you go. And see, that way you can, instead of having it take over your whole screen, you can do that and it'll show.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing your screen on
She
my.
hasn't started her broadcast.
Okay, now I see the screen.
Oh, okay.
See, I signed on to see if it's working.
Yeah, but that's what everybody else is seeing too.
Well, that's fine, but now we just go to screen, we just go down there and
Okay.
bingo.
Awesome.
And now you can.
So you don't need me. It's just the voice. It's not.
So when I'm ready.
That must be a star. Was it star one or pound one?
start. Good afternoon and welcome to our March 2017 customer webinar. We are going to wait just about another minute to get things started. I can see that we still have some people who are signing on, so we will be back in a minute to kick things off. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our March 2017 customer webinar. I am Kathy Susich. I work in the marketing department here at Dimensional Insight, and I am here with our CEO, Fred Powers.
And hello, and I'm looking forward here to spending the next 20 minutes with you and going over a few items dealing with Gartner and DI direction.
So if we take a look at our focus for today, you'll see that I will be speaking about some trends that Fred and I saw at the Gartner show. And then Fred will also be talking about Dimensional Insights direction. And he'll be talking about Dimensional Insights direction and how we are addressing some of these trends that we saw. And then at the end, we will also be talking about our users conference coming up in June and how you will see some of these areas that Fred is talking about in action at DIUC. So to start off, Fred and I, we went to the Gartner Data and Analytics Summit, which was held earlier this month in Dallas, Texas. There were about 3,000 people who were attending the show, and this was a chance for Gartner analysts to talk about some of the latest trends they're seeing and some of the work that they are doing with their customers. I wanted to take a quick look at the demographics of the show just to give you a sense as to where Gartner is coming from in terms of talking about some of these trends. You'll see here, if you take a look at the company size, about half of all attendees come from extra large companies. These are companies of 20,000 plus people. If you take a look at the IT budget in the lower left corner, about 22% of attendees have IT budgets greater than $200 million. So Fred and I realized that in terms of our customer base, you know, that certainly is not representative of what you are looking at. And so when we took a look at some of these trends that Gartner was talking about, we also decided to think about the applicability of the trends to our customer base. So one of the top trends that we saw at the Gartner show was kind of this notion of scarcity versus abundance. This is how Gartner set up their opening keynote. How do you address the scarcity of resources? So if you look at the left side here, there is a big scarcity in many organizations right now in terms of having skilled IT staff. I'm sure that many of you are feeling this right now, that you know, you don't have the IT staff to do everything that technically you would like to be able to do. there's also a scarcity in terms of gaining meaningful insights from your data. So of course, you have a lot of data, and you have staff who are trying to get insights from it, but is that data really moving the needle in terms of gaining insights? And then there's also a scarcity of representation of data at the executive level. So most organizations do have what I would call a technical representation at the executive level, but in terms of gaining the insights from the data, that's not really reflected in the C-suite. So how do we fix this? First of all, it's about having someone in the business unit who is responsible for the data. Now, Gartner talked about this notion of having a chief data officer at organizations. And Fred and I kind of laughed about that because I think that it's not, that's really for those extra large organizations that we talked about in the demographics. But it is important to have someone in the business who is responsible for figuring out how to gain those insights from the data. It's about having more of a decision-making culture throughout the organization, that everyone is involved in this process. And it's about tying the data to business outcomes. And so now Fred is going to talk a little bit about how we at Dimensional Insight are solving this.
So first we're going to talk about how we solve some of the issues relating to the IT staff and the fact that there just isn't enough of you, and meaningful insights, and finally something at the executive level. So our first slide here actually talks to the executive level. And some of those that are in healthcare have maybe seen this, but here we have a dashboard. There's about 28 different measures. The company is moving towards measures instead of just numbers. So you have things like admissions, surgical cases, ED visits, etc. Now, each one of those numbers are diveable. So you can click on that 13553 and you can see what it makes up. So we are actually diving into the data. And this allows you to start to have a meaningful insight into that information. You can dive again as well. So here you have a choice of other dimensions so that you can just utilize this just like you utilize Diver today. Now, if we take a look at this executive dashboard and we break it down right by the number of measure values, dimensions, and so forth, in this example, as you can see, we've got 28 measures, 18 dimensions, assuming 4 facilities, and assuming that you do 4 dives deep, that means that the total number of permutations that you have on this one slide is over 8 million. And all of this is completely automated. So this type of an approach goes a long ways towards solving the IT staff issue because we've automated this entire process. It also allows you to give meaningful insights into the underlying data. And, of course, it's something at a high level, at the executive level. Now, the next slide was to talk about the business unit and the responsible data there. So what we've done is instead of having everything surrounding the IT professional, we're moving some of this work now towards what we call the BI developer. And if you had a chief data officer, this individual would fall within that organization. And to the right of that, you have your various data sources. And you can see we're passing these data sources through an ETL process. We then have a business rules engine, an inference engine. We create data marts and various displays. Underneath all of that is knowledge bases. So this BI developer who was responsible for a segment of data, we call it a knowledge base, and the knowledge base actually supports all of those gears above. An example of that would be Here we're looking at hospital operations and the various measures. So you can see acute admissions and a definition. You can take a look at normal newborns, the definition, acute discharge days, and etc. So by taking the measures that a business unit is responsible for, making those clustered together and assigned to a BI developer, and we now have a business unit that is responsible, if you will, for a set of measures so that one can make responsible decisions. And finally, tying the data to business outcomes. So we took a look at what an executive might see, but in this situation, we're actually taking a look at a collection of measures and information about those measures. And these would be known as outcomes. You know, the number of surgical cases, or your revenue, or your observational visits. So Gartner is actually moving away, if you will, from data per se, and they're actually moving towards measures and business outcomes, which is exactly where Dimensional Insight is. And with that, I'll pass it back to Kathy.
Thanks, Fred. So the next trend that we heard a lot about at the Gartner show was this notion of balancing governance with self-service. So if any of you are Gartner clients or read up on what Gartner puts out, you know that they make a lot of predictions. So one of their predictions is that by the year 2020, 80% of data governance initiatives will be business outcome driven, leading to improved business performance. Gartner had an entire track on governance at their show, and one thing that we heard about is that governance really needs to be a process from the very beginning of your analytics implementation. It can't be something that you think about kind of halfway through. However, the problem is that business users are also demanding greater access to self-service analytics. So how do organizations kind of balance these two extremes where the organization wants to govern the data, but the users also want more access to this so that they can make decisions based off of it? So it's really about both enabling their users, but also ensuring the integrity of the data. So Fred, what are we doing in this area?
Well, we are concentrating now in data governance, and we'll be showing a fair amount of that at the user group, but a little sneak peek here. Here is a screen which will be part of the dashboard. In this case, we're looking at a measure called total admissions. And you can see here on the left-hand side, we have definitions, logic, calculations, etc. In the center, we have various notes that have been put in relationship to this measure as we develop the measure or evolve over time. And we can then take a look at the various individuals that have put in the notes. So we are actually collaborating around a measure, and in hospital operations, as an example, we have over 200 measures. And with that, let's see here. Let me pop down and talk about self-service analysis. So the first slide, I'm going to repeat the slide we had before, because by doing this automation and by giving all of these permutations, that in itself is a form of self-service. But we go beyond that in that we've created a new chart portlet. And in this case, I'm showing a pop-up with all of the various measures that one can choose from. For instance, in the center of the screen is total admissions and total discharges. And after we've clicked on that, we can then choose how we want that presented. Do we want it in a donut, a spark line, scatter plot, etc.? We click OK, and at that point, you have your chart or your tabular as shown in the background. And with that, let me pass it back to Kathy. Oh, I have one more here, sorry. And how are we solving this issue? This issue of integrity. Well, as part of the Mazor Factory, as part of the Diver platform, we are bringing in ProDiver here so that we can take a look at these various measures and we can actually analyze the data to see if they're true or they're false depending upon a different dimension. And this gives us the ability to validate initially when we turn on a system, but also to validate over time as things change. And we can also collaborate on this as well, so that when you're looking at your dashboard and you have a question on a number like 9985, you can actually denote that as total emissions, because total emissions could exist elsewhere on your dashboard. And then you have various notes that have come in by various individuals so that a conversation can take place. So you actually ensure integrity in two ways. Number one, integrity of the data, as was just noted. And number two, integrity as you are working with the data so that you can collaborate a number and ensure that it is accurate. And with that, let me pass it back to Kathy.
Thanks, Fred. And so the third trend that we wanted to talk about is taking advantage of new technologies. So we've heard a lot at the Gartner Summit about technologies such as artificial intelligence or machine learning. If any of you are familiar with the Gartner Hype Cycle, I know that Fred has shown this before in previous user conferences, but in the Gartner Hype Cycle, there's kind of this big peak of inflated expectations, and then it dips down into the trough of disillusionment. Well, right now, artificial intelligence is at the peak of inflated expectations. So over the next few years, organizations are really going to kind of try and feel out what they're going to do with these different technologies and how are they going to incorporate them into analytics. And Gartner predicts that throughout 2019, enterprises will consume deep learning mostly via integration in packaged business applications, devices, or APIs. And Fred.
And if we take a look here at packaged business applications, that's really what we are starting to focus on. For instance, in distribution, in the beverage area, we have things like the Program Advisor, the Pricing Advisor survey, General Ledger. On the hospital side, we've got hospital operations, ambulatory, etc. So we ourselves are starting to move in towards business applications. We are also positioning through the fact that we now are automating the process. And with that automation, because we have all of those permutations available to us, we can actually do, if you will, some, quote, machine learning technologies so as to actually aid the user in, if you will, focusing on what's important. In other words, the machine can do the querying. So we really look forward to 2019, and some of this we will actually potentially have before 2019. And with that, let me pass it back to Kathy, who's going to talk a little bit about the user conference.
So as many of you know, our annual users conference is being held in June this year, June 5th through 8th. And here is a rough sketch of the agenda. So we're going to kick things off on Monday, June 5th with some training. And if you look at our training offerings on the right-hand side, the first three here, report writing essentials using ProDiver, Diveport design and development, and Workbench BI developer with Spectre. Those will all be offered on Monday. Tuesday, June 6th is a full day full of general sessions as well as our customer case studies. So several of our customers will be presenting on how they're using Diver. Wednesday, June 7th is another full day. We will have breakout sessions by many of the staff here at Dimensional Insight. And then Thursday, June 8th will be more training. And so that will be Dive Tab and migrating to Spectre. So everything will be wrapping up on the afternoon of Thursday, June 8th. And in the agenda, there's a little bit of something for everyone, so I won't go through all of these sessions here, but I did want to point out just a few sessions. You'll see under dashboards, we have a session on collaboration, which Fred just talked about, as well as the new chart portlet. For developers, we are going to have a workbench overview. And then we will also have special sessions on Measure Factory and then rules in both goods and services and in healthcare. So those will all touch on the points that Fred just talked about. In addition, on Wednesday night, we're going to have a customer appreciation event, a dinner cruise around Boston Harbor. So you'll see the yacht there on the top left. That will be ours for the evening and only ours. So we'll have a nice dinner and you'll get to see Boston Harbor, which should be a great time. And then the venue will be at the Hyatt Regency Boston Harbor. It is right near the airport, so super convenient for those of you who are flying in. It's right on the Boston waterfront. It will have easy access to city attractions. There's a water taxi that will take you to downtown Boston. There's also a 24-hour airport shuttle, which will take you to the airport, so super convenient. In addition, we have a special rate for the time that you are there, as well as for the weekend. So if you want to stay the weekend, explore Boston, our special rate will also be applicable for the weekend. And then for more information, you can go to our website /DIUC17. The link on the bottom, that is just for registration. So if you want to get a little more on the agenda, see what some of the topics are that we'll be speaking about, go to the website at the top. You can check out everything. But if right now you just decide, hey, I just want to go ahead and register, that's the link on the bottom.
And with that, Kathy and I want to thank you very much for, if you will, the last 20 minutes. We do have time for one question. And if there are any, we will take the questions now. And if not, I look forward to seeing some of you at the user group meeting.
So if any of you have any questions, you can just type it right into the chat box at the bottom of the GoToMeeting. And we will wait here for just a minute to see if any questions come in. I will tell you that if there are multiple people at your organization who would like to come to DIUC, it is $14.95 for the first person and then $9.95 for each additional person. So there is a discount if you decide to bring multiple people from your company.
And I guess as an add here at the end, we talked about the Measure Factory. We are just saving so much time with this. It is unbelievable. We are doing some activities now that used to take potentially a month or two, and we're actually performing these activities now in a couple of days. So it is a tremendous aid in productivity. And with that, I want to thank you all very much. And we're doing these webinars every 2 months. So the next one will be in 2 months. And with that, I say so long. And Kathy says
so long. Thank you for coming, and we hope to see you all at DIUC.
Take care, everybody.